Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I'm speaking with author Bonnie Kistler about her debut novel called House on Fire. And she's got a copy of it right in front of her, and she's going to show off this beautiful cover. Isn't that beautiful? Do you love it?
I do. I do. It went through several versions until we landed on this one. I was very pleased.
Yeah, the color is so vibrant. I love that. And when I saw it initially, I was like, yes, I want to read it. Except for that I thought it was about a house on fire, and it's not.
My editor was worried about that. She said people are going to read this and keep wondering, when does the house burn down?
When does the house burn down? But
it's a metaphor.
That's what I was going to say, but metaphorically, right?
It does. The house does burn down metaphorically.
Yes.
And that the family falls apart.
The family falls apart. And I love this book so much. I mean, I was a part of a step family that, yeah, I know, right? So I brought 3 children into the marriage. We had 1 child together. And then we had 2 more after that. We'd already, before we got married, we had 1 child. And then we got married and we had 2 more children. And the father, the little bit of difference is this has all the step parents kind of surrounding. And the father of my first 3 children was not in the picture. He was in the military. He was away. So it was like trying to make this family. I so understood. They're trying to make a family a family. And it is so difficult. But in this day and age, this is real life right now. It's all over, you know?
This is not unusual. This is not an unusual situation at all.
No. When I was doing it. I
actually don't come from a blended family, and I don't have a blended family, but I observed so many and found it I think all family dramas are interesting and fertile ground for drama. But I thought, a blended family is even more fertile ground for drama, and this particular conflict, it becomes so much more painful because of the fact that the parents are parents of different children, and they don't have shared children. And when the basic conflict happens, which is that, and this is not a spoiler, the mother's daughter dies at what appears to be the fault of the father's son, and it just causes this blended family to just be split down the middle.
Yeah. And in my situation, trying to get the children that weren't a part of us to feel a part of, was tricky. And we ended up getting divorced. I mean, we did it for a long time. We were married for almost 15 years. And, it's almost like we navigated the young age, but when they got to be teenagers and older, and that's how this book is, it does get so much trickier with personalities, with, like you said, it's one child and another child in this situation. I was like, that's why I was so drawn to it right away, because I was like, oh my gosh, that could have been almost like me, where it's crazy when you're thinking about but you wrote these parents, you did such a good job with them. Having been one of them, I was like, she is amazing. You just made me step right into Lee's shoes, and I felt like I was right there with her, and having never even experienced what she experienced. But how did you come up with this story like that? What were you thinking, initially?
I started this story not really thinking about blended families, but with the more philosophical idea of the good lie.
Yes.
And someone telling a lie might be a good purpose. And that works its way through the story, through several different characters. And that really started with a news story that I stumbled upon quite some time ago, and it just lodged in my brain. And I just thought, I've got to do something with this concept. And the story was, it's an interesting true story. 2 young men they were like college age buddies. They were out doing a dangerous mountain climbing together. One of them had a fall and seriously injured himself. And the other one calls for help. But before help arrives, he switches their IDs. And the reason he did that was that he was employed and had health insurance, and his buddy, who was so seriously injured, facing, catastrophic injuries, had no health insurance. So out of the best of motives, this boy switched IDs so that his friend would be able to get...
I think I remember this. Why is it so familiar? I don't know.
Yeah. And the upshot was that the switch was discovered. The boy who did this, was arrested and charged with insurance fraud and was in fact convicted. And I understand that it was insurance fraud. As a lawyer, I understand that it was a crime, But it just seems such a shame that the boy did something out of the noblest of motives, and to have this happen to him. So the idea lodged in my brain, I think, over the years, and it was, as I said, it was some time ago. I just kept thinking of what story would be a good vehicle for this premise.
Right.
And then I came up with the idea of who's driving the car, and that becomes the central mystery of House on Fire. Is who was driving at the time of this accident that resulted in the death of the mother's little girl. And, is it plausible that the girl herself was driving, which is what the boy is claiming, and the mother cannot accept that she was, cannot forgive her stepson, whom she loved. She's doted on him before this, but she can forgive him for the accident, but she cannot forgive him for lying about who was driving and for coming up with this, what she thinks is that, half-cocked story. And,
right.
and that's the conflict that drives this otherwise happy family apart.
Yeah. And, in my former life, like before children and stuff, I was legal secretary. And for many, many years. So I always love the legal aspect in a book. Like that's like where my heart is I love the law. And I spent many years working for law firms. And so right away when I was reading, I'm like, I wonder if she was a lawyer. And then I look back, I'm like, oh, yep, she was a lawyer.
Well, actually, that's not where my heart was. My heart was always with writing, but my brain was being a lawyer for many years. And my brain still works, the way a lawyer's brain does. I think I still have those same analytical skills.
Oh, absolutely.
And same desire to follow things to their logical conclusion. But in terms of my heart, I really just always wanted to write, and I wrote, on and off throughout my legal career. And then finally left my law firm to devote myself full time to writing. That's where House on Fire came from.
And you know what? A lot of lawyers end up being authors. I've talked to so many, and legal secretaries aren't even a thing anymore. So I would have gone back to it.
They have virtual assistants now.
They're not a thing. And I loved my job. Like, I know there were people out there that wanted to just aspire to be, a lawyer. I just loved my job, so much. And then to be replaced by computers, it's like,
yes.
But anyway, let me read the parts that were my favorite, okay? And tell everybody. You start off, and I do this when I find lines like this that I love. I always want to point them out because I love a good first line. I'm a sucker for a good first line. And you say, a half hour before midnight, the greatest day of Kip Conley's life came to an end. And I went back, after I read the book, I went back and reread that first chapter. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was such a great first line. Because little did we, because I don't know at that point when I'm reading it. And then when I go back and read it, I was like, oh, did you work a long time? Like, was that your initial first line, or did you work on that?
I worked on it. I came back.
Did you?
Back and forth, and it was, the final version, final edit before I settled on that.
Right. And what I love about this line is that it's because we understand that time frame matters in his life. And so you put the time a half hour before midnight because
of his birthday.
Because of his birthday. But we don't know that.
About to turn 18, which under Virginia law, most state laws, makes him an adult and responsible for anything that happens after midnight.
Yeah, and it's like when we first read it, we don't understand that. But when I went back, I was like, oh, brilliant, because we come to find out the timelines matter so much in this kid's life, And then I love the end of the first chapter. I love it. And I love when you guys do it like you did it. Peter braked and pulled off to the shoulder. Peter is the father, in case I didn't say that before. Peter braked and pulled off the shoulder of the highway, and they, Lee and Peter, who are out on a date for their anniversary, stared at each other as they received the same news in their separate calls. It seemed the kids weren't safe at home after all. They were at the police station. And I was like, oh, right away, like I'm just sucked into this book. And that's what I want you to do for me. I want you to take me to that chapter too. And you did that,
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And because we're finding out, like, they're out on this like great date, it's their anniversary. They're celebrating this amazing family that they have. And, it's just
they created, they really feel they both are divorced. Their first marriages didn't work out. And they're feeling, you might say, self-satisfaction is the beginning of doom. They're feeling like we've really done it. We've beat the odds. I have a statistic in there that 2/3 of all second marriages end in divorce, which I think is still accurate.
It is. It's very accurate.
And it's and another line that I really like is that remarriage is the triumph of hope over experience. It's like when you marry again, you're hopeful, you're keeping your fingers crossed, even though your experience tells you that this could go badly. But Peter and Lee think that they have beaten all the odds. They have a happy marriage. They're 5 years in. Their kids get along like a house on fire. And then, that's really just setting them up for the fall, for what happens next.
I can tell you, going into my second marriage, I mean, I knew him. I knew him most of my life, right? We had this baby together. We thought we were so smart. We went to premarital counseling. We did everything that smart people do. And we ended up divorced. Like, I don't know that I could have done it any differently starting off a marriage with the best of intentions, but then you have that statistic that second marriage, no matter, it's just so horrible of a statistic, but you do want to hope that you're smarter, you're older. I know what I'm doing.
Learn from mistakes. You think that it would be the other way around, that second marriages would be more likely to survive than first, but it's not.
Yeah, we should have stayed with that counseling as the kids were getting older. We should have stayed. But anyway, this book is so good, and you're getting rave reviews. I'm seeing it everywhere. It's only been out like 2 weeks, right?
2 weeks. Yeah, 2
weeks. That's just crazy. But are you busy writing another book, or are you just like absorbing this book right
now? No, I'm busy, very busy on the next one.
Yeah. Can you tell us anything?
It's suspense again.
Okay.
It's not about a family this time. It's about two women who are at opposite ends of a case. They're both lawyers in this case. One of them is a prosecutor, former cop, now prosecutor, and the other one was a high-flying Wall Street lawyer, although she's fallen on harder times. And it's a little bit, I don't want to give away too much, but it's a little bit of a locked room mystery, the old-fashioned, like, two people are in a room and something happened and only one of them comes out alive. What happened? And who really knows? Only the survivor gets to tell the story.
Oh, I like that already. Yeah. Did you know you wanted to write like suspenseful thriller kind of? I mean, this one isn't like thrillerish, but it's suspense, and it's Did you know that was going to be the thing?
I can't say I did. I think that when I started writing, and as a young person, I was interested in just characters and people and emotional journeys.
Yes.
But I find that I want something to propel the reader through the story. And I think the idea of a mystery or suspense is what keeps the pages turning. I think that although certainly there are a lot of wonderful, wonderful novels, and I love them all, that have no element of mystery or suspense in them at all. But I think that those are the books that you can put down. Yes. And maybe not come back to for a while.
Right.
And I want my book to be the kind that you really couldn't put down for very long before you just want to know. You want to know. Oh, and that's what drew me to the mystery suspense genre.
Yeah, well, I can tell the character arc, because I did want to tell you this, is that Lee's journey of losing her daughter, I don't want to spoil the end for anyone, but I love the way you ended it. I thought it was beautiful. And, can't even imagining in my wildest dreams, like what she went through, and happy that I don't know. Yeah. But she changed, and her strength, like it just was, I got to the end of it and I was like, wow, like she's somebody to admire, I love that about her.
Thank you. The book is also about grief and how you get through it, how you go on with your life after something so horrific happens. I tell you that, like you, I'm very grateful that I never experienced anything like this. But when my girls were younger, it was my worst nightmare. That when they would be coming home late, they'd be out together in the car. When they were teenagers, and I'd be at the window and pacing, and just the idea that something could happen, and you just think, how does my life go on from this point? And that's what Lee's situation is. How does she live? How does she keep living after this thing happens? And getting her through that journey with the help of some other people along the way, and her final, and I tell you, the final scene of this book was in my head before anything else. I had that scene written and knew that was the way it was going to end, and I was always aiming to get there. I didn't always know how I was going to get there, but I was always aiming to get there. And yeah, I'm so pleased that resonated with you, because it was a very important scene for me.
Well, yeah, I guess as mothers, and as women, and my two oldest sons were in the military. So, and they were in the war. They were back in, they're 30. So they were during the Iraq war. And, like I know what I went through. I really can only just barely remember. It's kind of like having a newborn. It was horrible, but you just don't remember how horrible.
It's all a blur now.
It's all blur. And that's how their military career. I know how long they were in. I know that I didn't sleep, but I don't really remember much. But it was a fun book to read, everyone. It's I love books like this, and I'm so happy that I got to read it. I really am. And I'm so happy that, it's your debut, so I can't wait to see what else you have to write. Like, I love reading debut novels, because then I can follow your writing career with you, and that always makes me really happy too.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, let's see the cover one more time. I am going to put all of Bonnie's links listed below. I will put the Indie Bound so you can support your local bookstore, Amazon if you want it today for the weekend to read, and also all your links, your website and your social media links I'll put underneath too. And thank you so much for talking with me. And
pleasure.
When the next one comes out, which I'm assuming like next year sometime.
I hope so.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, you know where to find me. I'll read it early and we'll talk. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.